If we could all bow our heads for a moment. Heavenly Father, we come together before you tonight. I ask that you will bless this forum, that everyone will have proper decorum and praise you through our actions tonight. I ask that regardless of outcomes, that we always remember that the end goal is to glorify you and not our own wants or wishes. I ask that everyone here will remember that tonight, and that this forum will go smoothly and be glorifying to you. And we ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
And while you're standing, you can all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you all. So the 10th District is thrilled to be hosting this event, and I do want to thank our moderators because you've been doing this across the state, so thank you very much for doing it much closer to your hometowns this evening. I also want to thank Ben Joseph, who's been helping to organize the site here, Jenny Z, who is out there doing our Facebook Live today, so thank you very much, Jenny. And there are so many others, the people that were working registration, who've been giving out question cards, and I know if I start giving names, I will miss them, but thank you all for your help today. And as I mentioned, Jenny is streaming us live on Facebook, and it's also being shared over to another Republican page, so it is in multiple different places today. So why are we here? The county convention is coming up on February 26th, and there is a state convention on March 28th. Your call to convention will be sent to you by your respective county chairs, and they will give you the location for those events and the allocation for it. There is a cost this year if you want to go to the state convention, so just so you're aware, it is $50 for any delegate, alternate, or guest that wants to go to the state convention, which will be held at the Suburban Collection, now known as Vibe, in Novi. But at that state convention, we are endorsing our Attorney General, our Secretary of State, the Supreme Court, and all of the ed boards. Currently, the Attorney General and the Secretary of State are the only contested races that we will be voting on at that state convention. Our forum today gives you a chance to hear from the candidates, what they will do as your next Secretary of State, and why you should be voting for them at that endorsement convention on March 28th. For tonight's forum, as I mentioned previously, questions will come to us on index cards. Ben and I will be collecting these cards. We'll be grouping them by like topics, and then giving them to Ruth and Candace for them to ask the panelists. We do want to make sure you know that no negativity, please. Any attack questions will be heavily redacted or not asked. We are here to make sure we're voting for someone, not against someone else. So please make sure you're keeping your questions to a topic and not to personalities. Each of the speakers, as I mentioned, have chosen an order, with Monica being in first, Anthony is in second, Amanda is in third, and they will speak in reverse order when we're done. They have 90 seconds for an introduction that Dan Acacia will be timing them up front. When we get to the question and answer portion, they will have a minute each to answer the questions that are asked of them, and then they have a 1-minute closing at the end of the evening. So we are very fortunate tonight to have two former Secretary of States to be our moderators this evening. Women that have been leaders in that role and done it for 8 years each, and still have a lasting legacy that they have for us here in Michigan, as well as Republicans, to know what a great Secretary of State will do. Senator Ruth Johnson was first elected to the Michigan Senate in 2018 and then re-elected in 2022. And following redistricting, she now represents the people in the 24th District, which includes portions of Oakland County, Macomb, Genesee, and Lapeer. And she has chaired the Senate Elections Committee and served as the vice chair of the Senate Local Government Committee. From 2011 to 2018, she was our Secretary of State, where she made huge strides in streamlining operations, improving customer service, and safeguarding elections. So if you had to go get your license during those years, you knew what it was like to go into a Secretary of State's office before and then during her tenure. In 2004, Ruth was the first woman ever elected to serve as the Oakland County Clerk. So she has served at both levels, at the county and at the state. And then she also served on the Oakland County Board of Commissioners, 3 terms as the State House of Representatives, and where she served on the Veterans Affairs, Homeland Security, Education, Health Policy, and Transportation Committees. So tons of experience. So thank you very much, Senator Ruth Johnson, for joining us this evening. Our other moderator, we go by official, Commissioner Candace Miller. Just everyone knows her as Candace, and I am so jealous that Macomb has you as their dream. All right, there's an official title here that I'm supposed to use, the Public Service Resource Public Works Commissioner. She served in the state of Michigan at various state and local levels, and in 1980 she was elected to Harrison Township as their supervisor, becoming the youngest person and first woman in the township's history to hold this position. In 1992, she was elected the county treasurer, becoming the first Republican to win a countywide. Thank goodness they have continued to gain footholds here in Macomb. Oakland County, we need to make sure we use that as an example for Oakland. And then in 1994, she was elected to Michigan's 40th Secretary of State, defeating a 24-year incumbent. And I don't even want to remember who you beat, but we're so thankful that you did. Richard Austin, yes. So thank you very much. And then after 2 terms, term limited in that role, she went on to the House of Representatives, serving us in Washington, D.C. She was the chairman of the Committee on House Administration, the vice chair of the House Committee on Homeland Security, and the chairman of the Subcommittee on Border and Maritime Security. She was also a member of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. Then in 2016, she became Macomb County's 11th Public Works Commissioner and the first woman to hold that position. We are so grateful to have you here with us tonight, Candace. Thank you very much. And I am jealous that we don't have someone like you in that role in Oakland County. So thank you very much for that. With that, I am going to turn this event over to our 2 moderators. We asked them to bring questions with them while we were waiting to collect your questions. So we're going to turn this over to Ruth and Candace and let you decide next who's going to be asking the very first question. Actually, the first thing they're going to do is introduce themselves. So with that, I'm going to turn off my microphone and turn it over to those here on the stage. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Monica Etum, and it's great to be here with you tonight. Tonight, you're watching me as a Secretary of State candidate. I'd like to let everybody know that I'm also a wife, a mother, a devout Christian. I'm a precinct delegate in Oakland County, where I also sit on the executive committee. So, I'm the founder, and I started from scratch a biohazardous medical waste company. I own and operate that company, Detroit Medical Waste. And so I started that company about 15 years ago. And that's a company where compliance is a top priority. And I operate in a very strict compliance industry where chain of custody and documentation is extremely important. And it's not theoretical for me. For me, it's a daily responsibility. And so that same discipline and that same rigor is exactly what I would bring into the Secretary of State's office with our elections and our voter records. And so I'm used to fixing inefficiencies. I know how to manage people. I know how to manage budgets. But most importantly, I know how to prevent and detect fraud before it becomes a problem. I was the parent in Oakland County during COVID that filed a lawsuit to have the mask mandate dropped for our kids. Thankfully, that lawsuit was successful, and subsequently the rest of the counties across the state followed. From there, I built another organization, a 501c3 called Great Education Initiative, where we use those same attorneys to help parents take back local control of their child's education. And from there, I created the C4 Great Education Action, where I raised $1 million in a year, went out, hired door knockers, phone makers, did voter education across the state to help Republicans take back the state house and Trump win here in Michigan. Sorry, I'm out of time, but that's all I got. Thanks, everybody.
I'm kind of stuck here in the middle, so I'll stay right here. That's right. I got this mug here. It reminds me every day. Every vote matters. Every vote counts. This was what we came up. Oh, there's a cup right there. This reminds me every day of the promises we made 5 years ago with the election and elections and how they need to be. It aged pretty well, didn't it? It aged. The saying is stayed along. I am running for Secretary of State because I want to bring election integrity, election accuracy, and most importantly, election transparency to the state of Michigan. That is something sorely lacking right now. We can do everything we do in Macomb County, all the things, reforms we've made, shutting off the modems, finding hundreds of residents that are no longer with us anymore, that we took off the voting rolls, the non-citizens that we found on our voting rolls. These are the things that we need to do at the state level. I'm a business owner for 40 years. I've been married to my wife for 40 years also. We've gotten together 3 children, 4 grandchildren. They're a ton of fun. My wife has a ball with them because right now I'm on the road all the time. And together, we have brought together a great family. But more importantly, these last 20 years, I've been in public service. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Amanda Love, and I'm running to be your next Secretary of State. And wow, what an honor to be here in the presence of 2 legends over here. The Honorable Candace Miller, I mean, for you to come in and beat a 24-year incumbent, you've always been a legend to me for doing that. And also, your customer service was impeccable that you brought into that office. And if I remember correctly, I think you actually innovated it and brought fax machines into the branch offices because it was that long ago. But that was innovative at the time. And then Senator Johnson, with her actions on election integrity, certainly wish we had that now with the current leadership. But I'm running for Secretary of State because our election systems are a complete and utter disaster. And we don't need just a Republican to get in there and fix it, but we need a Republican who's actually going to do something. And I believe I am that person. I have the experience. I have worked for the Secretary of State's office under Republican leadership. I've worked for the Attorney General's office, and I've had various roles in the legislature. I also have had a lot of campaign experience, an election inspector, and an elected member of the Clarkston School Board. I have a lot of ideas to fix our election system and for customer service, and I look forward to getting further into them tonight. Thank you so much.
Ready? Okay. You know, I can't tell you how delighted I am to be here tonight, to see everybody that's here. I mean, my gosh, it's 15 degrees outside, and here you all are, so thanks so much. And certainly to the 10th District for sponsoring this forum, and to all the candidates that are coming. Believe me, Ruth and I know what it is to be a candidate running all over the state of Michigan. And you have a long way to go yet, all of you. It's a ways. But they really have to make sure that they are getting their message out because, you know, whoever any politician endorses, it is up to the delegates, the precinct delegates. You are all the ones that are going to decide who is going to win this race, who's going to get your nomination, who's the best candidate to win in November. And so it's a lot of, I really appreciate you all coming to listen to all this tonight. And I know that most all the questions are going to be about elections. So I'm not going to ask my first question about elections because it's as important, I think, we're all obviously very concerned with election security, et cetera, voter integrity. However, when I got elected, it really wasn't about the elections. Now, obviously, things have changed, but the Secretary of State's office is really the face of state government. They are the biggest agency that has interaction with almost everybody in the state of Michigan in some way, right? So it is also important, I think, for our candidates to at least think about and address what happens out in the branch office system. Because if you're not a really engaged voter, those are the kinds of things you might be thinking about for a candidate for Secretary of State. So I just say that because you're probably saying, why isn't she asking about the elections? But let me ask this question. As was mentioned, actually, I was the vice chair of Homeland Security. And I'll tell you, one of the things that kept everybody up at night and still does is cybersecurity. And when we think about databases, whether that's driver licenses, the Real ID Act was my piece of legislation when I went to Congress because of 9/11, right? They were using driver's licenses to do what happened there, right? So I would ask you this, I guess. What do you think, or how do you think you could balance some technology upgrades and really think about cybersecurity and protecting all of the various databases that would be under your purview from cybersecurity attacks? Or should there be something where you would perhaps share data with some national systems or not?
Is any order?
I think it's any order. I don't know. Where's Teresa? Is it any order? I don't want to go out of...
Teresa?
Huh? Why don't we just start with Monica for the first one here? Let's just go this way. And then we'll rotate it. Okay, there we go. Monica.
Okay, sorry, say the question one more time.
Cybersecurity is a huge issue. If they're going to, if we're going to have issues, it's going to be under cyber attack, any kind of databases, etc. So, you are going to have the largest database in state government, really, not just the voter registration, but the all vehicle registrations, everything that's under there. So, how would you try to protect the system from cyber security? How would you think that it's a good idea or not a good idea to share some of our databases with any kind of national system?
So as far as sharing some of our databases, to clean up the voter rolls, yes, I would share with a federal database like Homeland Security. And I would imagine that Homeland Security is an encrypted, protected database. But I think that's going to be important because for the voter rolls, to clean them up, to cross-check them with a federal database like Homeland Security, we're going to get citizenship information, we're going to get date of birth, and so if we're going to have a trusted partner, the Department of Homeland Security is the way to do that, and I would do that for the voter rolls. But as far as cybersecurity and protecting the rest of the systems across the Secretary of State's office, I definitely would like to keep that closed source. Obviously, we'd have an in-house IT department making sure we have top-of-the-line cybersecurity. And so while I would share with a federal database for our voter rolls, I think regarding everything else, like the Secretary of State's office, I would definitely keep that in-house and make sure we have, top-of-the-line IT systems and engineers working on that and protecting us from malware and any potential cybersecurity attacks.
This is a critical issue. Just today, I got a letter from one of my vendors, personally, saying our data was hacked. How often has that happened to any of us in this room? This is an ongoing problem that we're going to be having for years to come. It's only going to get worse and worse. I don't know any of us that are really cybersecurity experts, but I got to tell you, this is a focus we need to have because the databases that we have at the clerk's office, for instance, we've got a lot of information. Like Candace says, we are the front facing of the county. We have all this information, so we have to protect it, and we really have to do a great job protecting that information. We got some of the best people working on it. We continue to work on it. And since I've been in office, we haven't had any data breaches. And I hope that continues to be that way. I hope I just didn't jinx myself. But this is important, and I think that this database sharing with the federal government is also important.
So yes, cybersecurity is a huge threat, and we need to absolutely protect it. Now, like Anthony said, I am not going to say I personally am a cybersecurity expert, but I do have someone on my team who is, and he talks about this all the time, blockchain, all sorts of things, because we are holding all of the data, all of your personal data, from your voter history, your social security numbers, literally everything. And right now, Michigan is giving that data to a multi-state compact nonprofit known as ERIC, the Electronic Registration Information Center. And I want to withdraw from that on day one and bring back our security measures in-house. I think the more we can do it within our department, the more secure we can make it, and that will be my goal. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to thank Teresa and everybody from the tent that put this together, and I want to thank each of you. Did you know there's only 1% of the population that gets involved like you do? You're the leaders. People ask you questions because you come to things like this. You're trusted, and that means a lot. So thank you so much for being here. I also just want to let you know that right now we have 103.4% of the people registered to vote in Michigan. When my team was there, we took off 642,000 dead people. Woo! That's a lot. And we don't like dead people on the rolls, right? 149,453 people who had moved out of the state. So most of them were registered in 2 states, and 3,505 non-citizens. And we know elections are won and lost by a lot less than that. So that was 1 out of every 6 people on the qualified voter file. And my 2 things as Secretary of State is to get it down to what's correct for our qualified voter file, make sure everyone is a qualified voter that's on it, and the other thing was customer service. Luckily, Candace had already done a lot of that before I came in, so that was very helpful. And it was also nice that when I was Secretary of State, she went to Congress and tried to help change the whole country so that we don't have people registered in 2 states. And now Lisa McLean has that bill, and anything we can do to help her, we need to do that. Okay, so and today in our Constitution, someone can register and vote without ever being seen in person. That wasn't the case when we were Secretary of State. We needed to see a warm body once. What's wrong with that, right? All these ballot initiatives into our Constitution, you know, they have a lot of money from out of state, and what they told you on TV and in mailings was really so deceptive. Do you remember the guy? He looked so honest. He said, it will enshrine voter ID into our Constitution. But he didn't tell you, if you read down through the hundreds of words, it said, or none at all. And that's what's happening right now. We have a lot of people that their last 4 digits of their Social Security number don't match up with the Social Security Administration Help America Vote Act system. So these are things that we have to be fixed. So I'm so glad we have 3 people that are willing to dedicate their life to make their pitch to all of us and what they're going to do so we can pick the best person. And I do want to thank you again for being here tonight. First question. And I think we're starting with you, right, Tony? Yeah. Okay. Do you think the use of verifiable government-issued photo ID to vote should be mandatory? Please explain why and how you would do that.
Well, if you've listened to the news lately, it is unbelievable how we're registering people to vote right now. All that you need to do is put a name, check off a box that says U.S. citizen. You might think you're a U.S. citizen because you live in here, but you're not. And check off the next box that says, I don't have a driver's license, I don't have a Michigan ID, and I don't have a Social Security number. And you register to vote. That's all it takes. And in Macomb County, we found that there were non-citizens in our jury pool that we compared to our database, the qualified voter file, and found 14 people that were registered to vote that were not citizens. 3 of them actually voted.
there's no accountability now. So if I'm elected, for sure, we want to get an ID for every person, and we got to go back and clean up the system because the Secretary of State that's in there now just screwed the whole database up.
So we absolutely need to ensure that we, and I think the question was to how to make sure that you have proper identification to vote. So absolutely, we need to make sure that that's happening. And I have many plans to do that. And one of them is my pink driver's license plan. And that is for legal immigrants who come here and they want a license to drive a vehicle. They can receive that driver's license, but it's going to be a different color so that it's very easily recognizable that they cannot vote in our elections. Because just because you have a driver's license, sometimes the poll worker can think, oh, that's an ID, and they'll let them vote or they'll let them register to vote. So we're going to eliminate that altogether. And I also want to get rid of the option to fill out a ballot. It's supposed to be a provisional ballot, and it's not supposed to go into the machine. Well, what's happening right now is that they, even without an ID, they are counting the ballots anyway, and we will put an end to that immediately. Thank you.
So immediate answer is yes, I would support an ID to vote. It's really simple. You need an ID to fly, you need an ID to open a bank account, you need an ID to buy cold medicine. Voting is a sacred right, and it's also actually a critical infrastructure along with water, air, and electricity. Most people don't know that. So why wouldn't we protect our elections by making sure that every single person had an ID to vote? So I would support it, absolutely. I support the ballot amendment that's out today. If for whatever reason it doesn't pass, it would be a top priority for me to work with the state legislature to enact a law to make sure that people have to show ID to vote, but they also have to show proof of citizenship. And to further protect our elections, no more permanent absentee voter lists. You can have your absentee ballot, right? But you have to apply for it every single year, and you have to show ID, and you have to show proof of citizenship. No more automatic registration in the state of Michigan.
Okay, I gotta ask an election question here now also. And I'm sort of laughing because I know there's gonna be a lot of talk, and there is talk about the qualified voter file. I hate to date myself, but when I became the Secretary of State, I started the qualified voter file, okay? Before that, we had, people were keeping their root noses. Some of these clerks were keeping their voter registration rolls in shoe boxes under their beds. I'm not kidding. When we melded all the various lists together, we took off almost 900,000 names off the voter registration rolls in the state of Michigan. So, what specific reforms would you implement to ensure Michigan's voter rolls are accurate, secure, and free from fraud or manipulation?
So I definitely have an unpopular opinion on the qualified voter file. I think it's very disastrous. I personally would like to get rid of it altogether and start over. However, I know that's going to be a lot of pushback because people don't want to actually come in and re-register. But there is so much wrong with our voter rolls. But on, like I said, on day one, I want to withdraw from that ERIC system. And I think something else I can promise to do in the first week or so of office is do a search. And I think anybody born in the 1800s, I'd say that would be a fair amount, fair thing to take off immediately. We have to look into the issue of duplicate voters. That is actually more of an issue than dead people, surprisingly. And we need to get a handle on that. There's a system to get a handle on that. And I'm going to put it into place immediately. Thank you.
So I also support taking Michigan out of ERIC for various reasons, but and that'll be part of cleaning up the voter rolls. But something I touched on earlier was cross-checking the voter rolls with a federal database like Homeland Security. And I actually have to give credit to Ruth for that one because I sat down with Ruth one day and she said, this is, because there's different ways to do it. She said, well, this is how I did it. And I know Ruth was very successful in cleaning up the voter rolls, so I like the idea, and that's the idea that I would adopt, to cross-check it with Homeland Security. And I know she did that quarterly. I'd like to do it monthly or bi-monthly to get a little bit more aggressive, because right now we have 8.4 million people on our voter rolls, but for some reason only 7.9 million in the state that are actually eligible to vote. So I think that's a couple of the ways that we can clean up our voter rolls. And so we'll take the deceased people off the rolls, the duplicates, we'll take our non-citizens, and again, that's going to be making sure that people have ID when they go to vote, and they show proof of citizenship. But also to go with the voter rolls, I got 10 seconds here, we're going to have to secure our chain of custody on our absentee ballots because the two go hand in hand.
The problem with going last is I agree with everything everyone said here, because we really need to clean up this database. This database is so corrupted now. When we're finding all these non-citizens that have been put on the voter rolls, it's unconscionable that we've let this happen for so long. I just saw a report today, California has hundreds of thousands of non-citizens on their voting rolls. I mean, how does this happen? It happens because of neglect. It happens because of poor protocols. It happens because the application process allows for corruption. We need to clean up this database, and I think it's going to take a very, very big effort and legislation to clean it up and get all the people that don't belong on there off, including the fact that they increased to 20 years, the Secretary of State did. For those that don't vote, they stay on the voting rolls for that amount of time, and to take them off is almost impossible. To put them on is pretty easy. Day of voting, take them off is almost impossible. We're going to change that.
Thank you. The next question, we start with Amanda, is name the top 3 things you would do differently from our current Secretary of State and why. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, only 3?
That's all.
All right.
Hierarchy on please.
Well, I would say the most important thing is that I wouldn't break the law. I would actually follow the law. And the guidance that I would issue to clerks across the state would be lawful and not unlawful, like what we saw with her and Jonathan Brader. The other thing, too, is I would decentralize power in the Secretary of State's office, meaning she tries to control everything rather than giving clerks more power. And I would give clerks more power, right, to assist in things like cleaning up the voter rolls and help keeping them clean. I think that's 2. I can get one more, right? Okay. The other thing, too, is I would actually support our election workers and our poll challengers, and I would establish clear rights for them because they're our last line of defense in our elections. I think that's something that's really important that not a lot of people talk about, and so I would champion a bill to support that, and I guess that's 3, so I'll stop there. Yeah, that's it.
Transparency, transparency, transparency. This is where it all starts. We can do all the work at the clerk level, and when there's lack of transparency with our elections, and it gets all of a sudden lost up in the cloud somewhere, that's a problem. We're going to change that, so you're going to be able to see from the very beginning to the very end your ballot and how it gets recorded. The other thing is just this week we had a big thing with talking about the problem with voter rolls. You think I got a call from the Secretary of State and said, hey, Tony, what is going on? We got to get to the bottom of this. We have these people on the... There was no relationship with the Secretary of State's office and the local clerks. What a shame. Instead, she's defending a bad system that she has. That can't happen anymore. This has got to be a good relationship, and customer service. Customer service is completely gone out the window in the current Secretary of State's office. We're going to change that when we get in there.
So yes, like Monica said, following the law is a great start, and requiring signatures to match is a great example of a time that she's broken the law, and she's actually gotten popped for that, but she's still advising our clerks to go ahead and put signatures or put ballots through where the signatures don't match. I also would change the training program that's in place. It's not great, and it's not trickling down to our local village, city, township clerks at all. So we have a comprehensive training plan in place, and I thought, hey, why stop there? Let's actually include our law enforcement, our constitutional sheriffs, and our all of our sheriffs and our prosecutors, and let's train them in election law too, so that they can be informed of the law, so that if fraud occurs, they can stop it before it gets done, because that's ultimately what we want, is to stop it before it happens. And I want to put together a tip line, a 100 number tip line, 1-800-MY-VOTER-FRAUD.
Okay, I'm going to go back to customer service in the branch offices. So when you think about what the experience is in branch offices right now, you've got this appointment-only situation that's out in the branch offices. Would you stay with the appointment-only? Would you go to a hybrid? What kinds of things would you do to improve the experience of customers coming into the branch office to move it effectively, efficiently?
Well, to me, this is right up my alley. When I became the Macomb County clerk, it was appointment only. We had appointments that were 3 weeks out. We changed that. We changed it so that we had an appointment system and a walk-in system. Right now in Macomb County, and everyone here in the room knows this, if you come into our office, within 4 minutes you're served. Within 10 minutes, you're out the door. We offer great customer service and won national awards for this. We also answer the phone. We actually answer the phone. We have a 98% record of our office answering every single phone call. That's called customer service. When we call the Secretary of State's office, somebody's standing right in front of us there, we're trying to get a hold of somebody, we'll call and call and call and never get through. How embarrassing is that for us? How embarrassing is it for them? We answer the phone 98% of the time because we dashboard it, we manage it, and we got a great customer service as a result. Thank you.
So yes, I will say that the one good thing that Jocelyn Benson did was implement this appointment system, but I am going to also guarantee that you are able to be seen the same day also. So similar, I think, to what Anthony said, so you can come in, you can make your appointment, but you might have to wait a little longer, but if you walk in, you're going to be seen too. I also came up with the idea of having a hard line phone number that you can call, and it's going to auto-direct to your nearest branch office. And so the senior citizens in the room who don't want to navigate a website or an app to make your appointment, you can call, and they will set the appointment up for you. And then you can write it down in your paper book and show up to your appointment. We're also going to have customer service report cards so that the average wait time of every branch office is shown throughout the state, and we can correct the places that need the help the most. Thanks.
I like having to make an appointment. I think it makes things run more smoothly and efficiently. However, I don't think that works for everybody, right? So what I like is a hybrid model. So we keep the appointment system, but we also implement a couple of days where we can also take walk-ins so that we can do both. I'd also like to implement, where it allows in certain offices, an express lane. So if you're coming in for something that's a quicker appointment, like maybe just an address change or maybe like a duplicate registration or something quick like tabs, we can get you in and out really quick using an express lane. So I own a medical waste company. Customer service is a top priority. We are never the cheapest in the industry, but we're one of the busiest because of our customer service skills. So I'd implement a lot of that. And a big thing I would do too is a customer satisfaction survey between the different branch offices and make it public, put it on the website so that customers can see it. There's transparency there, but the staff can see it too for a little healthy competition. Who's got the best wait times and who's got the best customer service. And that'll be some of the different ways we can implement a better customer service policy.
Thank you. The next question is, because we know that Republicans in Michigan are less than the Democrats are, the people that pull one lever, as we used to say, or fill in one oval, we know that the convention is, you have to win, but what is your strategy to win the general, knowing that you're going to have to get far more than Republicans to vote for you?
So I'm not going to unveil all of my strategies since my opponents are up here, but certainly electability is important, and I believe that my platform really is the one that's resonating the most with the citizens of Michigan. I have the most ideas, and it's very common sense. People want common sense solutions to things, and the youth are actually also really resonating with some of my messages. And that's ultimately what is going to be a large part of getting that vote out. Also, The biggest one is low propensity voters. And if we got all of our, then that means that it's Republicans, but they just aren't voting, or they don't want to vote, or they have been black-pilled into thinking that their vote doesn't matter. Well, I plan on working with Lance Griffin. He has a great system called 10X Votes, and we're going to get those low propensity voters out. And I also want to appeal to churches across our state. I think they're, okay, thank you.
It's going to take quite a bit to win a general election, especially for this race. This is going to be a highly contested race, but there's some things we can do to be successful. And so, one, having a candidate that's electable, right? And I feel like I'm that candidate because I bring that outside business leadership experience, I bring the grassroots advocacy experience, but I bring a proven track record of success. I mentioned to you guys earlier that I created a C4, right? So we had an operation. We had a team that knew how to knock on doors, that knew how to make calls, that knew how to do voter education across the state, but that also knew how to do voter registration across the state. We're going to need to get our base out, and that's super important. But we need somebody that can energize new voters outside of our base, because our base is going to be super important, but also being able to turn out outside of our base is going to be super important. And something that's going to be just as equally as important as somebody that can raise money. This race is going to take at least $3 million. I explained to you guys earlier, I ran this C4 in just a year. I was able to go out and raise $1 million. I have these national relationships, right? For example, okay, how about?
The appeal in the general election is going to be critically important. And most of you know this already. As a township supervisor, I ran against an incumbent Democrat and beat him. I had to get the middle. When I ran as a state representative against another incumbent Democrat, I had to get a little bit center left, just a little bit, to push her off, and won again. As the county clerk, I ran against an incumbent. Again, a little crazy, but for the third time, I took out an incumbent by appealing to the mass. And that's what we have to do. We have the biggest opportunity ever to pull Democrats over to our side because of the craziness that's going over there. So we have that opportunity, and not only did I win that one barely, but I increased it to from 1,500 points to 80,000 this last one. We have to appeal to everybody. Thanks.
I think we'll just sort of stay on this. These are no longer Ruth and I's questions. These came right from the audience here. There's a number of questions here about how many elections each of you have won, blah, blah, blah. But I think this one sort of summarizes what would be a good question. The position of Secretary of State requires the ability to run a very large organization that directly affects millions of Michigan citizens. What leadership experiences do you bring to the table to assure us that you are qualified for the job? But you'll expand a little bit on your background and your experiences.
Well, like I said in my opening comments, I've owned a business for over 40 years and very successfully, and I decided in the last 20 years to give back. And so in the last 20 years, I was also at the Knights of Columbus, as a Grand Knight for the Knights of Columbus, ran an organization there, ran a township. That's a fairly big operation. As a state rep, representing a lot of people, but as a county clerk, we have over 100 employees in 3 different buildings. That's a fairly large organization that we run, and run it very effectively. And so that kind of leadership is important, and all of these had union positions. All of these had union positions, and you need to know how to work with the unions, and you can hold them accountable. When you say you can't get rid of a union employee, not true. Not true. Done it plenty of times. Hold people accountable, hold our management team accountable, hold ourselves accountable, and we got a good operation.
So I have a great amount of leadership experience in running large organizations because I've actually ran statewide campaigns before. And if you think it's impressive to manage employees as a business owner, I would encourage you to try to manage people who are not getting paid, trying to manage volunteers. It's much like herding cats. But I definitely have that skill set. I have an ability to read people, see what their best strengths are, and put those in those proper positions. I also have experience on the school board in Clarkston, where I am an elected official, and that's where I have experience balancing budgets and also working with negotiating the unions, like Anthony was saying. And all of the employees at the SOS office are civil service, and so we will have to work within those guidelines, and I have experience in the SOS office to know that as well. Thank you.
So I mentioned earlier, I own and operate a biohazardous medical waste company. We operate statewide. So I have summer clients, I have employees under my belt, I have drivers, I have to deal with logistics across the state daily, vendor inquiries daily. These are all leadership and management skills that are going to be important for the Secretary of State's office. So for me, I do this daily. But also I created a C3, right? Great Education Initiative. So we hired organizers and all different people to help us run that operation across the state. I had to learn and understand how different parts of the state worked, right? Just like I did with the C4, where we went, I hired and I employed hundreds of door knockers, hundreds of vote makers, hundreds of people to travel the state to do voter education and to do voter registration. So being able to manage these people, I've done that. Being able to do it in different parts of the state, that's going to be really important because the Secretary of State oversees all the different clerks across the state in all these different jurisdictions. So that skill set that I do, that I have every single day, that I operate every single day, is directly transferable to the Secretary of State's office.
Thank you. Our next question is, there's a bill that's been pending in the legislature for 2 terms that merely asks that we have our tabulators built in the United States of America. If anything should be built here, it should be that. But it hasn't been able to get through the legislative process. What would you do to try to push? And by the way, the bill does give 2 or 3 years for the manufacturers to get geared up. It's not unreasonable, right? So what would you do to try to fix that?
So I have a unique opportunity to actually get things pushed through the House because I have personal relationships within the House of Representatives. I actually went to college with the current Speaker of the House, so I know how to get things done and I know how things work there because I have worked there. I've managed many legislative offices in my lifetime. I have worked for the Republican Caucus Services. So it's really important that you get a Secretary of State who's not going to need on-the-job training because legislation like that are important. A lot of the ideas I talk about, like seasonal registrations, for example, I need the legislative approval for that. So I know how to get that, and that's really important to have that type of insider experience without being a corrupt career politician. I'm a great balance of knowing what I'm doing, but not being compromised.
Let me just stress that having tabulators built in the United States is so important because we should never have tabulator machines that have any foreign components in them ever, especially because they're counting our ballots. But the way I think to approach that, and it's going to depend, right? Do we have the majority to push this bill through? Do we have divided government? I think if the Republicans have the majority, then this bill is going to be easy. We could probably get it pushed through, right? But if we don't and we have divided government, the best thing to do is you're going to need somebody that has the personality and the ability to be able to negotiate with different personalities across the different political aisles to say, okay guys, what do we need to do to all come to the table and get this done? Because this is important. Our elections are important. They're a critical infrastructure. And we need to make sure that we give public trust in these elections. And I think if we could demonstrate that these tabulators don't have any foreign components, and if we can pass a bill like this, I think that'll go a long way to ensure public trust in our elections.
Actually, we should all be ashamed of ourselves as Americans that we haven't figured this out yet, that we're not doing this ourselves, that we've let it go to the foreign competition. You know, I'm in a unique position as being the county clerk, and we've got a clerk here, a local clerk, Kim Meltzer, of being able to look at the tabulator companies and asking these questions, because this is critically important. And it's not just the hardware, it's the software. This all has to be developed here. There is a new company out there that I just had in my office that has open source code that has all components made in the United States. At least that's what they're telling me. I don't know how I would know that, but these are important factors that we need to start stressing. And it's not just the tabulators, it's our cars, it's everything we do on a day-to-day basis. We as Americans have let the foreigners take over. This has got to stop, and we got to bring it home. And I'm all about getting it done, but we need to. It really starts in many other areas. We need to get this taken care of and bring it home.
You know, we talk about how people actually interact with the Secretary of State. So if you're an average citizen and you want to find out what the rules, regulations are for registering your trailer, or I don't know, whatever you want to do, right? You often start with the website. So I thought this was a good question. Will you dismantle and overhaul the current very bad Secretary of State website? But that's what this particular person thinks about it. I don't know if any of you had an opportunity to go to that website, but it is challenging. What could you do to improve the website?
I'm not a huge fan of the website. Yes, I don't know if I would dismantle it, but I would rebuild it, right? I bring a very professional team of engineers and an IT team to help us rebuild it, to make it easier to use, because if we can make the website easier to use, make it more accessible to Michigan residents to be able to use, then we can have more people doing things online or completing services online, and we have less people going into the Secretary of State's office, and that'll actually help us to reduce costs too, right? Because we're not so bottled up and having to have so many staff and facilities for people coming into the office. So yes, I would completely redo the website. I would make it much more easier to use. I'd also make it more transparent, because it's not super transparent right now. And so yes, I would rebuild the website.
I got to be honest, this is a pet peeve with me, even with my own website, at our county clerk's office. I'm always saying, where do I find this? How do I get this? Why is it buried here? How can we change it? These are questions that every one of us, I think I need to get a group of 8th graders to go in and redesign websites, because I think we let these tech people design these websites, and okay, it makes sense to you, it doesn't make sense to me. So I got to tell you, when I first came into the office, I couldn't find anything, and we've gotten better and better as time goes on, but we got to get away from these tech people doing these websites, and we're going to hire some of the young people or maybe older people might be better, right? Can you find it? I can't find it. Maybe that's how we do it. Get some older people involved.
Yes, there's something about government websites and them being notoriously bad. And honestly, we need to get a Secretary of State in there that is going to be aggressive and is not going to worry about special interests or backdoor deals, because ultimately that is why these terrible websites get produced, because of the unions and because of relationships. You owe a favor here, a favor there. Well, done. We're going to do the best website. It's going to be easily navigated. It's going to have all the services there. And while I'm at it, we are going to completely redo the mitten system, the campaign finance reporting system. That is a complete disaster. I never thought in a million years that I would miss the old system. Trust me, that was bad. But the current one is even worse, and we've spent millions of dollars to do that. So yes, to short answer, we are going to completely redo it in mitten. Thank you.
What are some essential functions of the Michigan Secretary of State other than overseeing elections, driver's licenses, and plates for vehicles? And the second part to this is, what will you do to make it better for people? So it's two parts. What are some essential functions of the Secretary of State other than elections, driver's licenses, and plates? And what will you do to make it better?
So, our office deals with an area that is really abused bad. I just had a case come in today. It's the Office of the Great Seal, and it's the notary. It is so easy right now to commit fraud in the notary area. We had somebody that had deed fraud, happens to be my cousin. passed away and something happened and there was deed fraud. There was a notary that a title company notarized or passed through. That notary's expiration date was 2006. This is just done. He had it down there 2026. Nobody's doing anything about it. We need to set up a system, almost like your Google Authenticator, you know, the Authenticator apps, where you can say, all right, I signed it, here's the number, and we can all double check it. So that's the one thing I would do is fix the notary area. It's horrible.
Yes, and Anthony, you always scare me because you always attack the office of the Great Seal, which is one of the most exciting parts of being Secretary of State is that we actually protect. Yes, that's true. But that is definitely a part of the Secretary of State that's not talked about enough. We also oversee dealerships, so I think that I haven't heard a ton of complaints there, but I have heard of a few. One of them being that it's very difficult to get CDL plates for people that at the dealership. So that's something that I've learned along the way that I didn't really know. So there's a lot of stuff that people don't often think about when it comes to Secretary of State that I have heard about on the trail because I listen to delegates and I get their feedback and then I come up with a solution to help.
A lot of people don't realize that the Secretary of State oversees our car dealerships across the state, but also our driver's ed and our driver's training schools across the state. And so, a couple of things there. Both of those contribute greatly to our Michigan economy, but lately their hands have been very tied and they've been heavily regulated because Jocelyn Benson has been leaning from the top and she has no idea how to be business friendly, and it's not a business friendly climate for them. So while the SOS oversees DMV records and election integrity, that's great, but the Secretary of State also can play a role in helping Michigan's economy by helping to deregulate and making processes more efficient for our car dealership owners across the state, but also for our driving school owners who are also having a difficult time, but also can oversee the processes for making it easier for kids to get their driver's licenses at the age of 16, because right now that added cost is too expensive, and there's a lot of hurdles in the way of that too.
You know, that so many of these questions, they're all great questions, but they're very, very similar, right? So I'm just trying to get them all together here so everyone gets a chance. But I mean, basically, what will you do to secure our elections? What will you do to ensure Michigan has safe and secure elections, et cetera, et cetera? A lot of these about secure elections. So I think they want to hear some more about how we can secure elections.
Yes, well, definitely that's my number one priority. And we have to, one, clean up the voter rolls, which we've talked about a little bit already. We also need to stop the fraud before it occurs. So I talked about my 1-800-MY-VOTER-FRAUD tip line. So if you see something, say something. I've also talked about my training program idea to make sure that all of our clerks and our sheriffs are trained in election law. We also need to really clean up our chain of custody here in Michigan. We need to make sure that we can track the ballot and the ballot number from the moment it's sent till an audit. And so we are going to make sure that the drop boxes are being surveilled 100% of the time, and that they're being proactively surveilled, so that if somebody is stuffing a ballot, one of those ballot boxes, they can stop it before it occurs. I also have many other plans. I'm not going to have time for that, but please visit my website to see a full disclosure, www.loveformi.com. Thanks.
All right, I think we beat this question to death, but I'm going to do my best to answer it differently. So we talked about voter rolls, but the next thing too is we have to secure or have a stricter chain of custody in our absentee ballots. So if we clean up the voter rolls, absentee ballots, which are a primary mechanism for fraud, we can control that better as well. And that means we have to make sure that they're sealed, logged, tracked, and verified at every single handoff. That means from the voter to the election worker, from the postal board to the counting board. We need to have a strict chain of custody. So if there's a break in that chain of custody, we know exactly where to go or who to go to. And if it's a who, then we need to hold that person accountable. So I think training is going to be really important. because I know we've seen a lot of malfeasance in our elections, but a lot of it is training too. There's a lot of human error. So making sure that our election workers are trained is going to be really important. And we need to address the issues with the tabulators, right? There's a lot of issues there, starting with one, closed source firmware. We need to change them to an open source firmware so that we can FOIA the information inside of our tabulators and do more there. But out of time. Sorry, guys.
I think the critical thing is we need to do all the right protocols. Macomb County, we were the first to shut off the modems. That is gone. We cannot be doing these modems anymore. The second thing we did was we turned on the scanners on our tabulators. So we scan every ballot, we know how every ballot looks, we know how every ballot scored, and we can compare it to the tape. We got to do that statewide. We got to do education for everybody. We have to bring more poll workers in. We had clerks this time. They had a supply of clerks. We trained 700 people in Macomb County. And clerks like Kim Melcher can turn to us and say, hey, I need 10 Democrats, I need 5 Republicans. We need to provide that kind of service to expand our workforce. We need to get rid of, we got to comb through the whole database and fix all that. So these are all things that we need to do the proper protocols so that at the end of the day, we got a good election and we got educated workers.
Thank you. Today, written into our Constitution, someone can register and vote without ever being seen in person. And we have no real-time system to check them. Certain absentee ballots now are accepted 6 days after the election. And the current Secretary of State took something out that I inherited that was very important, which was verify the signatures. That's a pretty easy thing, right? She changed the definition to verify to say if you get someone that's voting on an application, you don't have to verify it. It's automatically verified by the fact they sent it. All those are really big problems. So I think that's why we really need the citizens-only voting constitutional amendment. And I would like each of you to make a comment about what's going around right now, which is for people to sign so it can get on the ballot, because we know 80% of the people want it. That includes Republicans, Independents, and Democrats, the majority. So tell me what you can do to help and how you feel about that ballot initiative.
All right, well, first and foremost, I support that ballot initiative, and I encourage everybody to sign it if you haven't already, because if you want to ensure secure elections, we need to be able to show ID and show proof of citizenship. And so I supported the initiative by collecting signatures myself and having a lot of my family. I've given them a lot of petitions for them to collect signatures, and so we've been going door to door trying to collect signatures to support this initiative. And listen, in the event it doesn't make it onto the ballot, hopefully it does, but if it doesn't, the goal for me is right away, going into the Secretary of State's office, is to work with the state legislature and implement law, obviously, to make sure that we're showing ID and proof of citizenship to vote. But this initiative is super important. If you haven't signed, please sign. And if you can, grab some petitions and just go to your friends, your family. Every signature helps and it counts.
All right, so this thing that we did this past week in the clerk's office and exposed all these non-citizens, the other side, for whatever reason, says, a lot of this isn't true. It's true. Non-citizens are getting on the voting rolls. We proved it in Macomb County, and we are sponsoring an event this Thursday at Bumpers. So we're actually going to have an event at from 4:30 to 6:30. Paul Shamel, that owns Bumpers, is actually free pizza for anyone that shows up and signs a petition. So if you haven't signed it yet, come on out. This is critically important. I think we're going to get the signatures, but more importantly, the education, not from just our side, but the other side, to make sure we let everyone know how important this is. We will drive our voting population out in November on this one proposal, so we need to get it done. Thanks.
So I agree, we need to absolutely get this on the ballot. It is not redundant. A lot of people think that it is. Oh, it's already a law. Well, no, that's not right. So what have I done to promote it? Well, I think it actually might have been your office who called me because I'm a precinct delegate and actually sent me a bunch of petitions to get signed. So I have been taking them with me everywhere that I go. I also have been doing some extensive research because my base, they don't just take my word for it. They do their own research. These are delegates. They're just not going to sign something because they think it sounds good because they know that game too well. So they looked into it. There was a few issues that were alarming to me at first, and that was only because it was existing language that was already the law, and so they thought that it was getting changed to that, but it actually was just citing old law. So I was able to clear that up, get a ton of signatures in areas that wouldn't have otherwise gotten them. Thank you.
I'm trying to get everybody's questions in here. Obviously, you see we got a big pile here. It's not going to happen. But so let me sort of ask two questions in one. One is from this way and the other way, I guess. Can we do voting by hand instead of machines? Get rid of machines and vote by hand. And then, would you accept Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency for the Secretary of State?
Oh boy. I don't know, why not, I guess. I don't know as far as the Bitcoin. I don't have a clue on that. Yes, no, I don't know. What do you guys think? What was the other part of the question? I'm sorry. Get rid of the machines. You know what? I don't trust people. I don't trust people. I don't trust people. I'm going to give my ballot to a person and they're going to count that right? I don't know. Sorry. I would rather, and guess what? I think most Republicans like to bring it on election day and put it into the tabulator. I think that is a safer way as long as there's protocols. If you don't have proper protocols on these machines, we're going to run into trouble. There was not proper protocols in Macomb County when I first got in there. We changed them, and now as a result, if anyone changes any tabulation in that machine, we'll find out. Our board of canvassers, which I forgot two of them here, actually helped us find something that somebody changed the tabulators. So.
So I'm not a politician, and I'm not going to stand up here and guarantee something that I'm not 100% sure that's going to happen. But if my Bitcoin Orange cell phone is not a hint that we are going to be exploring bringing Bitcoin into the branch offices, then I don't know what else is. Also, as far as the machines, yes, I support paper ballots and what exactly the term used here, by hand. But as we've said earlier, we can't even get it through the House that we have a Republican majority in, not the Senate, however, to make the machines even be in America made. So I'm going to work hard and I'm going to work my butt off, and I think I'm the most likely person on this stage that's going to get that done for you. Thank you.
So I believe cash is king, and I like cash, although I would consider Bitcoin in the Secretary of State's office. There's a process there, but if it's doable, I wouldn't say no to it. As far as hand counting and machines, I'm not opposed to hand counting, but I will tell you guys that we have state law. MCL 168 says that we need to use the tabulator machines in our elections. That's not to say that we can follow up the machine count with a hand count, and that can be test piloted in smaller areas where we can do the hand count. And if we can show that that process can be successful and efficient, I don't see why we can't implement it across the state. But again, we're not going to be able to completely get rid of the tabulators, but what we can do is ensure safeguards, right? Like making sure they have open source firmware rather than closed source firmware, so we can FOIA the machines, the information inside the tabulators, but also turning on the transaction log on the tabulating machines. So we know who's accessing them, we know when they're accessing them, and we know what they're doing when they access these machines, and making sure that every jurisdiction has updated EMS software so they're counting the ballots correctly.
There's 2 states in America that have decentralized voting. That's Michigan, who has more clerks that conduct elections than Wisconsin comes in as a close second. So the question is, since Michigan and Wisconsin are the only decentralized managed elections, which means local and township and city clerks, they're the ones that conduct. Will you move elections for the county to run, or keep Michigan elections decentralized with the more than 1,600 local clerks?
So you stole my thunder there a little bit, because I was going to brag that I knew the amount of clerks that we had here in Michigan. But I am absolutely going to keep it decentralized, because local control is always better, in my opinion. So no, I'm sorry, Anthony Forlini, as a county clerk, you will have less power if I can have anything to do with it. Okay, and that's it.
Yeah, I 150% support keeping it decentralized. I believe that we should leave the power with the clerks. Let our city and our township clerks handle the elections. Our county clerks can continue to be the middlemen to the Secretary of State's office. And I think that's so important, because when you do try to centralize everything, it makes it much easier to conceal fraud. So keeping it decentralized will help to actually also secure our elections.
Contrary to what Amanda said, I do not want to centralize it into the clerk's office, the county clerk's office. No way. The local clerks, Kim Meltzer, does such a wonderful job. The worst that can happen is for me to take over that job and screw it up. She's doing a great job. All of our local clerks do a great job. But what we can do to help support them is what we're doing right now. We're helping recruit and train election workers. That takes some of that responsibility off their shoulders. But if you think centralization works, look at the TCF Center. Right? You can't, it's a mess. That is not what we want. We need to keep it local, and it's very tough to cheat elections when there's so many different parties involved. If you bring it all up to the top, one little niche, one little change can change the whole election.
Well, we obviously couldn't get to all of your questions. We literally have piles of questions here. We tried to do our best and make it as balanced as we could with different areas of interest. But with that being said, we are now going to stop asking questions of the candidates, and we're going to let each one of you give your closing remarks. And I'm not sure who's supposed to go first here. Amanda. We're starting with Amanda.
1 minute. All right. So I am the best candidate for this position because I am the best of both of these candidates up here. I have the experience necessary to be the Secretary of State and not need on-the-job training. I also am a fighter, and I have the best ideas so far, and I have the guts to get them done. I'm also the best candidate because I'm not using this as any sort of stepping stone to higher office. This isn't just the next rung on my political career ladder. I really, genuinely want to fix our election system so that it's fair for my children and go home. And I'm Amanda Love, and I would love to earn your vote at the nominating convention on March 28th. Thank you very much.
Listen, we in Macomb County turned Macomb County red. Did we not? It's time now we change everything in Michigan and turn Michigan red, right? I was a part of it, Candace was a part of it, many of us, Kim Meltzer, were part of making Macomb County red. We have got to do that same positive, same relentless campaigning, positive attitude, letting the rest of the state know that we've got something. And as Republicans, we need to look at each other and say, listen, we're all winners. This is, Ruth said it, the 1% of the 1% that's sitting in this room. You're the example. We need to move forward. As the county clerk, we've run a great operation. We're going to take that to the state level. And I'd love to have your vote in the delegate race, anthonyforlini.com. Thank you.
I would just want to give credit to all the grassroots volunteers and all the delegates in this room that actually did help to make Macomb red, because They knocked doors, they made calls, and they hauled ass to turn this county red. So I want to make sure all of you guys get credit. To that end, I will say this. I am the only candidate that has not been a part of the broken system in Lansing for the last 10, 15, or 20 years. I bring that outside business leadership experience, that outside vision that this office needs. I operate daily in an environment with strict compliance standards, with strict chain of custody and documentation standards, and these transfer directly to the Secretary of State's office because this is the skill set that we're going to need to take into our elections. It's transferable to our voter records, it's transferable to our tabulators, and so I think that's important. It's that outside business experience, it's the grassroots advocacy. I know how to run a campaign, I know how to knock doors, I know how to hire people to knock doors and make calls. Vote for Monica Tuma, or Monica from Michigan.com.
Thank you so much, Monica, Anthony, and Amanda. Let's give another round of applause for our candidates. I know each of us has our own way of picking candidates that we want to vote for and give our time, treasure, and talent. So I'm going to ask you today that if you have a candidate here on the dais that you want to say, I want to see them and have the next SOS title, please volunteer with them because they are going to need your help over the next 6 weeks until the endorsement convention on March 28th. And whether it is time, treasure, or talent, they will appreciate any and all of it to make sure that they get the votes that are necessary on March 28th. So again, another round of applause for our great candidates. I also want to thank our moderators. It'll be nice to know that next time we have one of these in 8 years, there'll be a third Republican up here at the dais to be part of the question and answer. So thank you very much, Candace and Ruth, for giving him your time. So for the 10th district, please make sure that you like our page and that you ask to join our group because there are 2 different pages, 2 different items on Facebook, and we share information on both places. Our Jenny, thank you so much for live streaming us, and I know it's out there in a variety of different places and Ben changed it across the board. Our meetings for the 10th district, we always meet on the 2nd Thursday of the month at the John James Political Office on Van Dyke. So please join us there. Our next meeting is February 12th. The precinct delegate, we are hosting precinct delegate training on the convention at that office this Thursday, January 22nd, as well as again on February 11th, so you know what to expect at the convention, whether it be at the county or at the state. Please join us at those. Also, there is information about Pizza and Politics is back. Darlene has put out flyers. They're out at the registration table. Monday, February 16th at Palazzo Grande. It is a free event, and I just made it free if it wasn't Darlene, so it is a free event for all precinct delegates to make sure you sign up. There is also precinct delegate forms. If you are a precinct delegate, where are my precinct delegates in this room? Oh, look at that, candidates. You still have a half an hour to go and say hi to all of them. We need you to sign up again because you have to sign up to run again in August. So please make sure you see us for a form if you haven't done so already, and we'll have them at every 10th district meeting between now and May 5th, which is the filing deadline. With that, thank you all very much for investing your time and hearing from our candidates. And again, thank you very much to all of you. Appreciate what you've done. Thank you, everyone.
One more round of applause for Teresa Mangioli, Ben Joseph, Sandra Hartunian, Ken